Did you ever wonder who kickstarted the ambitious journey of landing a man on the moon? It was none other than President John F. Kennedy. Back in May of 1961, before a joint session of Congress, Kennedy made a bold commitment. He set the goal for the United States to land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth before the end of the decade. A year later, in a speech at Rice University in Houston, Kennedy reaffirmed this lofty ambition. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, a key figure in establishing NASA in 1958, collaborated with Kennedy. They worked tirelessly with Congress to secure the necessary funding for this daring endeavor. However, as the Vietnam War escalated and domestic issues mounted, their enthusiasm began to wane. The moon landing dream was alive, but the post-Apollo era seemed uncertain. Enter Richard M. Nixon, the new president in the White House in 1969. He had to decide America's post-Apollo course in space. In the early days of Nixon's presidency, the man on the moon goal set by his predecessor, John F. Kennedy, seemed within reach. Nixon, however, found himself in a position to chart America's course in space for the post-Apollo era. He understood the importance of this mission and knew that the decisions he made would shape the future of American space exploration. In February of 1969, just 2 weeks into his term, Nixon directed his science advisor, Lee A. Dubridge, to appoint an interagency committee. The goal of this committee was to advise Nixon on a post-Apollo space program. Nixon understood that America's journey in space had to continue, but the path forward was not clear. 9 days later, Nixon announced the formation of the Space Task Group, or STG. This group, chaired by Vice President Spiro T. Agnew, was tasked with developing a strategy for America's space program for the coming decade. Other members of the STG included NASA Administrator Thomas O. Paine, Secretary of Defense Melvin R. Laird, and the Director of the Bureau of the Budget, Robert P. Mayo. Together, they were to report back to Nixon with their recommendations. On September 15, 1969, the STG delivered its report to President Nixon. The group proposed several bold options for America's next steps in space. But Nixon, after careful consideration, declined to select any of the options proposed. Instead, more than 2 years later, Nixon directed NASA to build the space shuttle. This decision was just one element of the ambitious plans the STG had proposed. Yet, it was a significant one. The space shuttle would become a symbol of America's continued commitment to exploration and discovery. Nixon's decision sculpted a new path for America's journey in space. His leadership and vision ensured that the United States would continue to push the boundaries of human knowledge and exploration in the cosmos.